We knew what was going on, but we couldn't quite put our finger on it. In fact, it took me a long time to put together this whole everything code thesis. But by 2020, it was clear that the lowest level of currency was the biggest trend and that there was no way out of the debt problem. Things are only going to get worse from here. I agree with you, that's when I knew there were only two important trends. You could say that both were about technology since they were both about technology. This movie is by Raoul Pal, and it's about why crypto is the best way to make money. Raoul tells us how he plans to get through the next market wave by telling us what humanity has given us and how we can best use it. Let's watch the video now. Because I used to run big, diverse macro portfolios, I find this very interesting. Because I believe that everything is connected, I now run about 90% Solana. I believe that you should pick the asset that is working the best and not get attached to it just because it was ETH last cycle. Now, I also spend a lot of money in tech companies, but we'll talk about that later. For now, let's just talk about AI and such. But even if I think they're the best companies ever, the picture shows that they're all less than 1% of what they were. That means I can't even do it, which is crazy. Really, it's not like I could say, yeah, my diversification is basically just one token and a bunch of other stuff on the side. Yes, I do have some memes, other random things, and a lot of NFTs because I've been investing in high-end NFTs for the long run. That's it. And it sounds like you've gone the same way, where you're very focused on two main ideas: blockchain, AI, and a more active position in Tesla with a lot of calls into the bottom of the recent drop are some of the things that are being talked about. Because in 140, Tesla, yes. Yes, I agree. As for me, Tesla is pretty and very interesting because it trades like a car company that goes through cycles. When the economy is bad, people buy fewer cars, right? That's clear to us. Because it offers cars, they're having trouble with inventory and sales. But when the cycle turns, which is where the business cycle is now, you get the revenue multiplier plus the technology. This is why it ends up doing so much better than everything else in the upcycle. But because of how people think, they look at how people feel on Twitter and see things like anti-Elon or it's this or that and think that Tesla has lost its way and can't sell cars. They also look at China and see mid-curve, 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 mid-curve. Guys, when the market is bad, no one can sell cars. Either or Tesla has $30 billion in cash on hand, so they're not going out of business. So you might as well put your money to work ahead of time. Don't miss this chance. The SEC's chairman, Gary Gensler, says that the SEC will decide whether to approve us spot Ethereum exchange-traded funds based on how quickly issuers can react to the SEC. Because of what Gensler said, producers seem to be responsible for getting approvals. This shows that the SEC won't take too long with the process, as some people thought. The SEC cleared 819 bits for filings to list spot Ethereum ETF on different US exchanges on May 23rd. However, they can't start trading until they get the necessary S1 registration statement approvals. As that person said, these people want to answer the comments they get, but it's up to them how much they do. Gensler in a story from Reuters on June 6th. The words add to what Gensler said on CNBC earlier that same day. The next steps will take some time. Some people think this means the commission will take a long time to sign the S1 forms. Elliott Palins, an ETF expert at Bloomberg, says the process could last weeks or months, but he thinks it will be over by the start of July. The SEC hasn't said why it seemed to, but Gensler told reporters that the change might have been because Grayscale was able to successfully sue the Bitcoin ETF last year. In court, Grayscale said that since the SEC had already approved the Bitcoin futures ETF, there was no reason to reject the spot Bitcoin ETF. This was a big part of why they decided to accept it. People read that Gensler said the Ethereum case was similar and that the SEC staff had looked at the Ethereum files and seen the different links. Gensler said that these connections are like those in the coin space. 2 days ago, I was in Miami in an Uber car. The car was a Tesla. How do you feel about your car? He says we talked about his car for 40 minutes. It would take 40 minutes in a Tesla Uber in Portugal to do the same thing. I've never paid for service, but that guy was nice. He said, because I have a Tesla and all of these other things, I'm making 30% more as an Uber driver when you talk about it and say, well, look at the robots people tell you, Elon. That's all for nothing. Cars that can drive themselves will never come the way. Everyone doesn't believe that the new self-driving is any good, even though I've heard it's pretty good and that a new version is coming out in about 2 weeks. Why can't you talk about Tesla without other people around? That's really strange. Without a doubt, we'll have in the comments. It's strange that people are against Tesla, since Japan has made it clear that they want robots to solve the same problem. China, the same. Europe has been slow to catch on, but Germany is building the TSMC plant, not the NVIDIA plant. The US is building 3 TSMC plants and Japan already has one. That was really interesting. I started to follow Midcurve takes on Twitter. Elon had said that GDP is clearly GDP times the number of people. Everyone is like, fucking idiot. Yes, of course it is. This is what he means: you can't have GDP without capital people. When the world's population goes down, GDP growth stops. You need to figure out that math, and robots and AI are the only answers. Because the story going around right now is that robots are taking our jobs. Like you, when the story is so strong, I start to look into what the other story is. Because this is such a clear story. Of course people will need to work. My goal is to make a Raoul AI that looks like me in video form. Does that mean I lose my job? In a few ways, yes. What this makes me think is, what is the core of what humans are? How can we make each other better? Actually, since you made my can of LaCroix, you don't add any economic value to my life. This is what you're worth in money, not you. Being able to watch you on YouTube and learn something from you is something of value to me. Talking about. People are social animals. Our favorite things to do together are talk and hang out. We like new things. My co-author on The Exponentialist, David Matten, said something that really shocked me. He says, ask any kid what they want to do for a living. People used to say things like, oh, you and I both want to be a banker, an astronaut, or a marine biologist. I want to have a lot of power. At first, people my age and I would roll our eyes and say, really? But then again, that's something you and I both do for a living. David said, you have to understand that they can change. People are very good at adapting. If our job in the future is to make other people laugh, then they're living a good life right now. If that's what it is, and then we add Web3 and the power to tokenize these communities and cultures, it makes a human-based economy all by itself. Someone else brought up an interesting point, so I'm going to give you a lot of information. Someone else made a very good point. They said it was clear that OnlyFans would be AI, but real OnlyFans would cost more. On a bigger picture level, that's also interesting. Order flows don't always mean buying on the open market, so there are ways to get around it. I know most of the people who have built these ETF businesses, and they're truly dedicated to their work. Is someone manipulating you? There is always someone trying to make a price and take a price. I know this because I used to work in the banking system. There is no big plan for how to trick people. If you wait until you have choices, these things will become more difficult. Because more people are involved, the world gets more difficult. It's better than nothing. It's funny to me because, on some level, I think the SEC, the government, and the financial system think, well, we're going to control most of these assets, and we can use our normal channels so we can keep our fee structure and our control. It's like a Trojan horse, because as soon as you buy Bitcoin, you see that Solana is going up even more. You open a Coinbase account, and before you know it, you're taking care of your own Solana and copying WEF. That's the trip. All of them have done it.